Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 1 year ago this month, the President of the United States addressed the nation proposing his strategy for a war against ISIS. He struggled with what the mission was. Were we as a nation engaging to degrade ISIS, to defeat ISIS, to destroy ISIS? And then the question arose in this body, at what level do we engage? Do we consider an authorization to use military force, something that is proper under our constitutional authority? Yet 1 year later, we have not considered an authorization to use military force. We have not had the debate over what is the role of this body in our current foreign policy and our current national security strategy against ISIS. The only portion that we were willing to touch was the request to arm and train Syrian rebels. And this body, I believe wrongfully, authorized and appropriated $500 million, $500 million to train Syrian rebels. Yesterday, we heard from the top commander of our forces in the Middle East that there are either 4 or 5 individuals engaged as Syrian rebels confronting ISIS. $500 million, 5 people. The president's strategy against ISIS has failed. ISIS continues to grow geographically, continues to be enriched. Russia's hand is strengthened. Iran has increasing leverage every single day. Mr. Speaker, the architects of terror today are emboldened. But they are emboldened not only by the failure of this administration's policy, they are emboldened by the failure of this Congress to do our job. Where are we in this debate? Where is this Congress on whether or not we are going to consider an authorization to use military force? Where are we today on the $500 million that has now trained 5 people? Do we stand behind that decision as a body? I hope we do not. But the bigger question we have to ask, and it's a hard question, are we a nation at war today with ISIS or are we not? And if we are we willing as a nation to accept the human and economic consequences that comes with conflict? The frustration you hear in my voice is the frustration we hear in the voices of the American people across the nation every single day. It is a frustration about what this body does not do. We should be having a debate over the authorization to use military force. I don't know how that debate turns out. Nobody wants to go into conflict. But we don't get to choose the threats that come our way. We only choose our response, and 1 year later, we have no response. And all this is through a lens of an agenda that we continue to fail to do. Let's give voice to the American people on issues like border security and immigration reform, on transportation, on a budget that finally balances. The frustration is not that we haven't achieved these things, it's that we haven't even engaged in a legislative fight to begin to advance the agenda that is right for the American people. We are elected to be custodians of the public trust, and we fail that public trust. Every day we fail to consider the issues that are of most significance to the American people, to honor the constitutional responsibility we have under Article 1. We have spent the last 2 years cloaking ourselves in the Article 1 authority of the Congress every time the president overreaches, and we have rightfully done so. But just as we cloak ourselves in the Article 1 authority, we have to recognize Article 1 brings responsibility. We have failed to honor the responsibility that we have under Article 1. We have an obligation to have a very hard debate about whether or not we are a nation at war with ISIS and whether or not we are doing anything in the face of the president's failed policy to actually confront the audible threat of terror of a regime that wishes to bring harm and destroy the United States of America. This body has failed to engage in that debate, Mr. Speaker. I ask with the utmost conviction of this member, but frankly the people who give me the honor to represent them in this House. Let's give voice to the American people. Let's give voice to the people that we represent here in this body, and let's finally have that debate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.